The river is called Jabbok, and at this hour it sounds like a voice that will not stop talking. The water moves over the stones in a low, restless mutter, the kind of sound that fills the silence without ever breaking it. The moon is thin, the wind has died, and on the near bank, a man stands alone in the dark, listening to the last footsteps of his family fade across the ford. He has just sent everything he loves to the other side: his 2 wives, his 2 servant women, his 11 sons, the flocks, the camels, the donkeys, the slaves. Every face he has ever loved is now on the far shore, and he is here on this side by himself, with nothing between him and whatever is coming except the sound of the river and the smell of damp stone. His name is Jacob, the heel grabber, the deceiver, the boy who stole his brother's blessing and ran for his life 20 years ago and has been running in one way or another ever since. Tomorrow morning he will meet that brother again. Esau is coming. 400 armed men are coming with him, and Jacob has done the only thing a man like Jacob knows how to do. He has divided his camp, he has sent gifts ahead, he has prayed, he has calculated, he has hedged every bet a man can hedge, and now there is nothing left to do but wait for sunrise. Except sunrise is not what arrives. A man arrives. Out of the dark, without warning, without introduction. And before Jacob can speak, before he can ask who, before he can ask why, the stranger lays hands on him, and the fight begins. A man wrestles God to a draw and limps away with a new name. A patriarch holds a divine being in a chokehold until dawn. A river crossing becomes the place where a nation is born out of a wound. And most readers miss what almost nobody points out, that Jacob does not win this fight because he is stronger. He wins because he refuses to let go after he has already lost. The thesis of this story, the single line that the entire night is bending toward, is this: God is closer to the desperate than to the dignified, and the blessing is not given to those who run from him, but to those who hold on until he marks them. That is the story we are about to walk through. Let me show you what is actually happening here. Before we cross the river with Jacob, we have to learn one Hebrew word, because the entire story is built on it, and most English translations cannot quite carry the weight of what it is doing. The word is panium. It means face, but in Hebrew, panium is plural, literally faces. The Hebrew imagination understood that a face is never one thing. A face turns, a face changes, a face hides and reveals. To see someone's panium is to see who they are in this moment, and the next moment that face may shift. When the priests bless Israel, they say, "May the Lord make his panium shine on you." When sinners are warned, they are told the panium of the Lord is against them. To stand before the panium of God is to stand exposed, every layer of you visible, with nowhere to hide. Hold that word. Because Jacob is going to use it 3 times in this chapter, and each time it lands like a hammer. Now the world. Jacob is at the Jabbok River, a tributary that pours west into the Jordan, in the highlands east of the river, in a region known in the 2nd millennium before Christ as the land of Gilead. This is rough country. Limestone ridges, deep wadis, forests of oak and terebinth. The Jabbok cuts a steep canyon through the hills, and at the ford where Jacob is standing, the water is shallow enough to cross, but the banks are tangled with reeds, and the cliffs above press in close. It is not a place you would choose to spend the night. It is a place you would cross quickly and keep moving. The Hebrew name Jabbok, sounds almost identical to the Hebrew verb yabek, which means to wrestle. The narrator of Genesis is doing something the casual reader misses. He is making the geography pun on the action. The river of wrestling, the wrestling at the river. Yaakov Yabek at the Jabbok. Jacob wrestles at the wrestling place. The text is winking at you in Hebrew before the fight even begins, and the cultural stakes. In the ancient Near East, a name was not a label. A name was a destiny. To know someone's name was to know their essence. To change someone's name was to change their fate. When Pharaoh wanted to claim Joseph, he renamed him. When Babylon wanted to absorb Daniel, they renamed him. Names were spiritual currency. And Jacob, this man standing at the ford, has been carrying a name that is also an accusation. Yaakov, heel grabber, supplanter, deceiver. He has lived inside that name for almost 100 years. He has made it true again and again. He has cheated his brother, manipulated his father, outmaneuvered his uncle, and built a fortune by being slipperier than every man around him. The name has become the man. Tonight, the name is going to break. Set the scene. Jacob is 77 years old by the most careful reading of the chronology. Though some traditions place him older still, he has been gone from his homeland for 20 years. He has worked 14 years for 2 wives he did not originally bargain for, and 6 more years for the flocks that now graze somewhere in the dark on the other side of the river. He left home with nothing but a staff and a stolen blessing. He returns with caravans of livestock, a household of more than 70 souls, and a terror in his chest he has never been able to outrun, because the brother he cheated is coming. And the last words Jacob ever heard from Esau's mouth were a vow to kill him. Earlier that evening, Jacob prayed. Genesis 32, verse 11. "Deliver me, I pray, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau. For I fear him, lest he come and attack me, the mothers with the children." It is one of the most honest prayers in the Bible. He is not pious. He is not poetic. He is afraid. He has built his whole life on his own cunning, and tonight, for the first time, he understands that his cunning is not enough, so he sends the gifts ahead. 200 female goats, 20 male goats, 200 ewes, 20 rams, 30 milking camels with their colts, 40 cows, 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys, 10 male donkeys. He divides them into droves with space between, so that each wave will hit Esau separately, like a slow tide of appeasement. Then he sends his family across, and then, the text says, Jacob was left alone. Pause on those 4 words. Jacob was left alone. In Hebrew, Vayivater Yaakov Levado, alone, by himself, stripped of every person, every possession, every plan he could put between himself and what is coming. This is the first time in Jacob's life he has been truly alone. No mother to cover for him, no father to bless him, no wives to comfort him, no flocks to count, no schemes to run. Just a man, in the dark, by a river that hisses his future at him. And then the man comes. The Hebrew is sudden and strange. A man wrestled with him until the breaking of the day. No introduction, no description, no name. The text does not say where he comes from. It does not say what he looks like. It just says, suddenly, there is a man, and he is wrestling Jacob, and they are locked together in the mud at the edge of the river. Now watch what Scripture does. The verb the narrator uses is the rare word Jabbok, the same verb buried inside the river's name. It appears almost nowhere else in the Hebrew Bible. It is a word for the kind of wrestling that requires you to be completely entangled with your opponent. Dust pressed to dust, breath against breath, no space between you. This is not a fist fight. This is not a duel. This is the kind of struggle where you cannot tell where you end and the other begins. And it goes on for hours. Picture it, the river muttering, the reeds bent, 2 figures locked in the dark, sliding in the wet clay, neither of them speaking. Jacob does not know who this is. He cannot see the face. He only knows that he is fighting for his life, again, the way he has been fighting for his life since the day he was born, grabbing his brother's heel. He throws his weight, he hooks, he twists, and the man does not give, and Jacob does not give. And the night burns down, hour by hour, like a candle no one is watching. Genesis 32, verse 25. When the man saw that he did not prevail against Jacob, he touched his hip socket, and Jacob's hip was put out of joint as he wrestled with him. Ride that line again, because the casual reader misses what it is doing. The text says the man saw that he did not prevail. The implication is staggering. For most of the night, this stranger has been holding back. He has not used everything he has. He could have ended this in a heartbeat, but he did not. He let Jacob fight. He let Jacob hold his ground. He matched the man instead of crushing him. And only when the dawn is approaching does he reach out with what seems to be the lightest possible gesture and touch Jacob's hip. Not strike, not break, touch. In Hebrew, naga, the same word used when the burning coal touches Isaiah's lips. The same word used when the fire of God touches Gideon's offering. A divine touch. And with that touch, the joint dislocates. The femur pops out of the socket. And Jacob crumples in the mud. He cannot stand. He cannot run. He cannot even properly fight anymore. And this is the moment, the exact moment his body fails him, that Jacob does the most extraordinary thing of his life. He holds on. Genesis 32, verse 26. Then the man said, "Let me go, for the day is breaking." But Jacob said, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." Listen to what is happening in that exchange. The stranger is asking to be released. As if Jacob, broken-hipped, dust-caked, exhausted, somehow has the power to hold this being against his will. He does not. The text knows he does not. The man is letting himself be held. He is allowing the grip. He wants Jacob to refuse to let go. And Jacob, for the first time in his life, is not grabbing for an inheritance, not grabbing for a birthright, not grabbing for an advantage. He is grabbing for a blessing he cannot manufacture. He is grabbing because he has finally understood that he has nothing else. If this story is opening up something you have never seen before, subscribe, leave a comment, even one word matters, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. That is genuinely how more people find this channel. Now, back to the river, the man asks him a question. Genesis 32, verse 27. "What is your name?" And the stranger already knows. Of course he knows. This is the same kind of question God asked Adam in the garden. "Where are you?" The same kind of question God asked Cain. "Where is your brother?" These are not questions for information. They are questions for confession. The man is not asking Jacob to identify himself. He is asking Jacob to admit himself. And Jacob says it. Yaakov, the name that has been his accusation for 97 years. The name that means I cheat, I trip, I take what is not mine. The last time someone in this family asked Jacob his name, it was his blind father Isaac, and Jacob lied. He said, "I am Esau, your firstborn." He stole the blessing with that lie. And now, 20 years later, on the far side of the Jordan, in the mud of the Jabbok, with his hip in pieces and his enemy approaching with 400 swords, the question comes back, "What is your name?" And this time, he tells the truth. Yaakov, I am the heel grabber, I am the cheater. I am every wrong thing you have ever heard about me. The truth is the prerequisite for the new name. Genesis 32, verse 28. Then the man said, "Your name shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven with God and with men, and have prevailed." Yisrael, Israel. The Hebrew is contested by scholars, but almost certainly built from the verb Sarah, to strive, to contend, to wrestle, joined to El, God, one who strives with God, one who wrestles with God. And what almost nobody points out is the breathtaking inversion happening in this name. Yaakov was a name about how Jacob related to people. He grabbed his brother. He tripped men up, but Yisrael is a name about how he relates to God. Not how God relates to him, but how he stands before God. The new name is not a softer name. It is not a gentler name. It does not say, "You are now meek, you are now polite, you are now well-behaved." It says, "You are the one who wrestles God and does not let go." Heaven prefers that to dignified silence. And then Jacob does what Jacob always does. He pushes for one more thing. He asks for the man's name. And the stranger refuses. "Why is it that you ask my name?" the text says. And there he blessed him. The blessing is not in the giving of a name. The blessing is in the withholding of one. Because if the name had been given, Jacob could have used it. He could have invoked it. He could have built an altar and tried to summon this being on his own terms. But the divine being will not be reduced to a syllable. He will be encountered. He will not be controlled. And then the sky changes. Dawn breaks. The stranger is gone, and Jacob is standing alone in the mud, holding his shattered hip and watching the first light come up over the Gilead hills. Genesis 32 verse 30. So Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, saying, "For I have seen God face to face, and yet my life has been delivered." Peniel, Peniel, the face of God. There it is, Penium, the word we learned at the beginning. He has seen the face of God, and he is still breathing. Every Israelite child raised on the Torah knew the warning, "No one shall see me and live," the Lord said to Moses. To see God's face was to die. And yet here is Jacob, alive, watching the sunrise, with the dust of God still on his clothes. And he limps. The narrator gives us this detail with surgical care. Genesis 32, verse 31. The sun rose upon him as he passed Penuel, limping because of his hip. The man who left home running has come home limping. The man who lived by his own legs cannot trust his own legs anymore. The wound is not a punishment. The wound is the proof. Every step for the rest of his life will be a sermon. I met God here. I held on. I would not let go. And he marked me. Within hours, Jacob is going to see his brother again. And what almost no one notices is the language Jacob uses to describe the meeting. Genesis 33, verse 10. "For I have seen your face, which is like seeing the face of God, and you have accepted me." Penium, the same word, twice in 2 chapters. Jacob has just come from the face of God, and now he says, looking at the brother he wronged, "I see God's face in yours." The reconciliation he could not engineer has been engineered for him. The man who was so terrified of his brother that he hid behind herds of livestock is now embracing him in the open. Because once you have wrestled with God and lived, you can stand in front of any other face on earth. Abraham stood before the Lord and bargained. Moses stood before the Lord and trembled. Job stood before the Lord and wept. Jacob stood in the mud and would not let go. He came to that river a deceiver. He left it a nation. He came strong on his own legs. He left leaning on a touch he could not survive without. He came carrying a stolen name. He left carrying a given one. He came alone. He left holding a wound that proved he was not. If you are in a season where the night has gone longer than you thought it would, where you have sent everything you love to the other side, and you are sitting in the dark waiting for a morning that does not seem to be coming, this story is for you. Maybe the part of this story that stays with you is the part where the stranger does not crush Jacob, even when he could. Maybe it is the part where the touch comes only after the man has already given everything he had. Maybe you have been wrestling with God for so long that you have forgotten what you were even fighting for. You feel the limp. You feel the exhaustion. You feel like you have nothing left to grip with. Hear this carefully. The grip is not what saves you. The refusal to let go is what marks you. God is not waiting for you to win. He is waiting for you to hold on long enough to admit your real name. The name underneath all the names you have used to cover yourself. The name you do not want to say out loud. He already knows it. He is not asking for information. He is asking for confession. And on the other side of that confession is a new name you did not give yourself. God is closer to the desperate than to the dignified. He is closer to the arguer than to the polite. He is closer to the broken-hipped wrestler in the mud than to the dignified worshiper in clean robes who has never let the night cost him anything. The blessing in this book is not given to those who run from him. It is given to those who hold on until he marks them. Jacob's limp was not the end of his strength. It was the beginning of it. Every step he took for the rest of his life, Every time his weight came down wrong and the pain reminded him was a footprint of grace. The river is still muttering at Jabbok. The mud is still there. And somewhere in the long night of your own life, the stranger is still asking for his name. And yours. If this opened something up for you, the biggest thing you can do is subscribe, leave a comment, even one word matters, because that is genuinely how people find this channel. Share it with someone who needs to hear this story. Pray for us as we keep digging into these texts. And may the God who wrestles in the dark, who marks the ones he loves, who gives a new name on the other side of a long night, walk with you and limp with you all the way home. God bless.